read an article the other day from McKinsey, and in the article they talked about interviews with freelancers and business owners, and a very large percentage of them, upwards of 35% or more, said, "God, I really wish I had kind of a guaranteed, consistent income." And I think that makes a lot of sense. One of the biggest benefits when it comes to planning financially for yourself and your family is knowing what's going to happen tomorrow. I mean, that's what about planning is all about. You plan for something to happen. It's very hard to plan for things you don't know, and it's even harder to plan for the things you don't know that you don't know. And it made me think a little bit about, well, how can you reconcile this? And as a business owner for almost all my life, there's very few times where I've knew exactly when and how much I was getting paid, and I think every business owner can relate to that. And with that being said, while the bills don't stop, paying your team, anything household, your monthly utility bill, your monthly internet bill, name it, you don't know when you're getting paid next. And sometimes you're going to get paid the whole thing, but project takes longer, client doesn't pay, so on and so forth. And I think it comes down to say, what is it that, how can you reframe not being able to plan financially when you're a business owner? And I think a good way to look at it is you can't take traditional advice, so just pay yourself first, right? That doesn't work, right? Because you can't pay yourself first. If we pay yourself first, there's not going to be anything else left for anything else, right? You have to pay yourself last. And I think a way to look at it is the same way big companies look at it, and not look at your business as your business, but to look at the ownership in the business as one of your investments, and actually kind of put a value on the shares of your business. Even if you're a one-man show, you have an LLC, you have a corporation, you have stock in your company. And you say, well, what's that stock worth? And there's a lot of ways to do it, a lot of ways to value that business based on, how much sales you have, your profit, how much inventory you have, how much, money you might have coming in. If you have kind of a recurring business where you get paid a certain amount per month for, different types of work, then you can say, well, that money is worth X amount of dollars over time, right? And you can then back that out and say, all right, I've got this amount of profit times some sort of multiple of a business. And that is what the value of my stock is worth. And a way to maybe financially plan as you're investing more money in the business, because let's be honest, sometimes you can't pay yourself first. And sometimes you don't have a lot of extra money that you can invest in other things. That money kind of goes back into the business, as they say. And we kind of want to look at it as a kind of return on equity, which, companies that have return on equity, that's the value of their net income divided by their market value. And the percentage kind of gives you an idea of how efficient that business is, right? What kind of investment return, what kind of money is coming out of that business based on the size of it. Like if you've got, $1 billion business that's worth $1 billion and you can only manage to eke out $1 of profit every year, well, having $1 billion to make, investing $1 billion to make $1 a year, that's probably not a good business. Now, over time, that market value changes. Like publicly traded companies, the stock value changes really almost every second. And the net income changes, quarterly as they report it. So that the same approach can be taken there too, is to say, okay, what is the return on the market value of my business? All right, I got this amount of income. I've got this amount of market value in my business based on some sort of a multiple. Maybe no one's going to buy it for that, but it's an actual number that you can say, this is what my business is kind of worth. And as you maybe, you put money back into the business in the form of hiring an employee, in the form of, even, buying more stuff for your business, a new service, new inventory, that goes on the books to some degree as an expense for payroll, as, an inventory cost and an inventory asset. But you can also say, look, I'm basically loading up on more shares. I'm driving up the value of my shares of stock. And now I can generate, hopefully higher return on equity by applying these investments. And that might be a functional saving thing. So, you may not have a whole lot of extra money to say, let's go save and invest traditionally in the stock market, especially on a consistent basis, because I got to put it all back into the business and the enterprise. But you can say, I'm now putting that money back into my business. I'm not just putting it in there arbitrarily to pay some bills, to keep the machine going. I'm actively and intentionally buying more shares of stock in my business. I'm actively loading up the value of shares of stock in my business. And that's going to all over time drive my net income, drive my return on equity, which then in turn should also drive the underlying value of your business. So even after 5 or 10 years, someone might say, hey, how much did you, put aside for, retirement, or for that? You might say, well, geez, X amount of dollars is in my personal investing account. Oh, it seems a little light, right? Well, I put another 10x amount of dollars into my business, and the per share price of my business has gone from 2 to 10. Even though it's kind of not really real to some degree, and it's not like trading with a ticker symbol and you can't easily sell it. But what there's no difference to that of how a lot of famous entrepreneurs have made a lot of wealth through maintaining equity and ownership in their business. Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, almost all their money comes from driving the value of that equity, which at some point became something sellable and liquid. We may not get there to that point as a business owner, but we can start to look at it that way. So in short, stop worrying about not paying yourself consistently, because you may not be able to pay yourself consistently with a biweekly paycheck of the same exact amount, which then allows you to budget this and budget this, and budget for your rent and budget for retirement and budget for a savings spot here and budget for the kids. It does allow you to calculate a difference and say, all right, maybe I did not pay myself this week because cash hasn't come in yet, or I have a pretty big new project expense I'm taking on. That's just not lost and gone. That should be something that you look at is saying, hey, I don't have an expense. I'm actually buying and investing heavier and becoming, effectively less diversified. I'm loading up, I'm buying the dip, as they say, into my company, which is now going to, long-term increase the market value, increase my net income, increase the return on equity of the business. And then you say, hey, before my business was, I made $100 a year net income, and, I thought my business was worth 500, 5 times, 20% return on equity. Now you can say, hey, it's been, a few years, and now I'm making 200 a year, and now it's going to be my business is worth $1,000 instead of the 500. And you say, well, I doubled the value of my business, even though maybe I'm kind of making the same a little bit, especially in the early stages of being an entrepreneur. Maybe I haven't really saved up a lot here. Maybe I've had to take on some debt to finance the business, but the value of my enterprise, the market capitalization of my company has accelerated. And that's true. That's a true financial planning sort of tactic for yourself, to not look at these things as money being just wiped away or just getting to survive, and not feeling like you can't have a consistent strategy to build wealth for yourself and equity in your business.